Welcome to another JS Drop from This Dot. In this drop, Shruti Kapoor will demonstrate how to create dynamic animations on an HTML canvas using plain JavaScript. You'll learn how to build a canvas and draw circles that move, change color, and react to event listeners. Let's get started.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming to this JS Drop. My name is Shruti Kapoor. I'm a senior engineer at Slack, and today I'm going to show you how to create HTML animations using just HTML canvas and some JavaScript. This is a really cool tutorial because we're going to create some fireworks animation. I will show you what we're going to create. We're going to create this rolling ball effect. Anytime you click, there's going to be a ball popping on the screen and it's going to go any direction. And we're also going to create this fireworks effect with your mouse. So let's get started. For the purpose of this video, I am going to use CodePen so that you have access to the code right after. We're going to put the link in the description. So before we get started, let's talk about what we're going to do. We're going to use this HTML canvas element. I've opened the documentation here. And what you can see here is we're going to use this canvas element, and this element can be used to create like graphics, visualization. I've also used it to create like real-time video processing in the past. So it's a really cool and very powerful element. So we're going to use this and use some JavaScript to add animations. We're not going to use any third-party libraries, so this is going to be really fun. So let's get started. The first thing we want to do is, according to the example, is basically set up our canvas. So let's do that. I've got a CodePen running here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a canvas with an ID. We'll give an ID of canvas as well. And close this. Okay, when I save this and refresh, nothing really happens. That's okay. Why don't we add a height and a width? To this canvas. And then let's add a background of black as well to make sure that we can actually see our canvas. There you go. We started to see our canvas. So that's great. Why don't we extend our canvas so that it takes up the whole space? So for that, what we can do is we can have canvas dot. Let's get into our JavaScript and we can create a variable called canvas and get element by ID which is going to access the canvas element that we just created. And what we want to do is increase its width to be the width of the entire window. There we go. And then canvas.height similarly to be the width of the entire window, height of the entire window. Let it save, refresh. Okay, sweet. Looks like it's working. You'll see this weird padding here. If that bothers you, you can add. Usually in CodePen, there is like automatic body padding added to the body. So if that bothers you, feel free to add a padding of 0, and that should get rid of the padding. Let's see if it did. If it didn't, it's probably margin. So let's do that. There you go. So let's remove padding and keep the margin. Okay, cool. Our canvas is now set up. It's not doing anything right now. So let's start adding circles. What we're going to do is we're going to create a circle on the screen, and then we're going to make it bounce off to one wall. And then once it hits a wall, it's going to bounce back and go to a different side, different direction. So it's going to stay within the canvas. And we're going to keep this like bouncing ball kind of effect. So if we go back to the documentation and see what we need to do, the second step after creating a canvas element is to create a context, is to get the context actually. And what is context? Context is really just it's a canvas rendering 2D context 2D object, but really what it helps you do is it provides you methods like fill style, fill rect, circle that help you kind of create objects on the screen, move them around, give them direction, give them color, and things like that. So context is going to be very helpful for this tutorial. So let's go ahead and get the context for this canvas. So I'm going to create another variable called context, and then I'm going to get the context from canvas. And now what we want to do is use this context to create a circle. For that, let's go back to the documentation and see how can we create circles. That's going to be in drawing shapes. The method that we're going to use to create a circle is going to be arc, and it is available also on the context. So what it accepts is an x and y, which is the center of the circle, a radius, which is the radius of the circle, a start angle, and an end angle, and the direction. So why don't we open this and see if we can get an example here. So this is an example. In the example, you'll see there's a circle. We're beginning a path. We're going to use the context arc method to create a circle at this center with this radius and a start angle of 0 and an end angle of 2 times math pi, because we're creating a full circle, a full arc. So let's copy this into our pen. We need to change context dot ptx to context and stroke. Sweet. You'll see that nothing is rendered right now. And the reason for that is because our canvas is black and our stroke style is also black. So what we can do is we can add a stroke style here. So we can provide a context.stroke style. By default, the color is black. And because our background is also black, we can't see anything. So why don't we provide this here? There we go. We've got a circle. And so we've got a circle at this 100 and x of 100 and y of 75. That's why it's up at the top. Now what we want to do is whenever we click, we want to draw a circle. So for that, we can add an event listener, click, and we'll create a function called draw circle. Let's define this function. Draw circle. Accepts an event. And so we want to draw the circle whenever we click. That means our x and y comes from our event. So what we can do is const x equals event.x, const y equals event.y. And then we can move our circle here. The x and y comes from the circle. We're going to give it a predefined radius of, let's say, 10. So this comes from radius. And these are constants, so they can stay as is. Now let's click and see if this is working. Cool, looks like it's working. Right now you'll see that we're kind of drawing in empty circles. We can fill these circles by providing a fill style. It's also available on context, so why don't we go ahead and do that? So we got context dot fill style is equal to red. And then now instead of stroking, we have to fill it. So we're going to do context of fill. And there we go, we've got circles again. We provide a predefined radius of 10, so we can fix that and provide some random radius. So it looks nice. There we go. There we go. So we've got random radius with red color everywhere on the screen. Cool. Now what we want to do is we want this circle to move. So every time we click, we want to draw a circle, and then it should start moving in one direction, hit the wall, bounce back, and move back. So for that, what we want to do really is we want to create an animation. So we're going to be using the request animation frame method that's available to us to create animations. One thing that you'll notice in the arcs function is that it accepts a x and y. And to create an animation of a moving circle, what we can do is if a circle has an x of 0 and y of 0, and in the next tick we increase the x by 1 and y by 1, it'll look like the circle is moving 1 point at a time. So it'll give it a motion, a sense of motion. So what we basically want to do is every time we call our request animation frame, we want to update the center of the circle by just a little bit to make it look like it's moving. So let's try to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a animate function. And then we'll call this animate function. And then in the animate function, we want to increase the speed, or we want to increase the center of this circle by just a little bit. So for that increased speed, or that increased x is going to be delta x, or the speed of x. So we can call it dx. It's going to be a let dx equals 1. We'll just increase it just by a little bit. And then similarly for y, same thing, dy is 1. Okay, now in the animate function, what we want to do is we want to create a circle, but then after the circle has been created and we call request animation frame, we want to increase the center. So in the animate function, first we're going to call request animation frame. We want to draw the circle here. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an animate function. In this animate function, we'll call request animation frame. And this request animation frame is going to call animate function. But then what we want to do is every time we animate, we want to increase the center of the circle by just a little bit. So for that, what we can do is we have this x and y. If we move x and y outside this function and create a handle event listener, which takes in an event and calls draw circle. This is just to clean up just a little bit and refactor a little bit so it's easier for us to access our circles and update their center. And then we can move let x and y here. So then x becomes event.x and y becomes event.y. And this is going to be a comma b, so clean this up as well. Okay. Is it still working? Handle event listener should go in click. There we go, still working, cool. Now in the animate function, we want to update our x and y, so we already have access to them here. So we're going to increase x to be x plus dx, which is the speed that we defined here, and y to be x, y plus dy. Let's see if this is working. We're clicking, we're calling, we are updating, but we want to call our draw circle here with this x and y. Cool. You'll see that it's working. We're seeing streaks, and the reason we're seeing streaks is because the previous circle is still on the screen. And so really what you're seeing is multiple circles being drawn at the same point. We can clear this. The way to clear this is on animate. Before we create a new function or a new circle, let's clear the context. So then, it has this weird thing going on. Let's take care of that. So what we can do is instead of handle event listener, instead of creating, I think handle event listener also creates a circle. So instead of creating a circle at handle event listener, we can clean this up to just create a circle at this point. So let's see why this is happening. Handle event listener has X and Y. I think if I move this here, no. Draw circle is being called by A and B. Am I using X and Y somewhere else? Radius is math.random. I'm going to move the radius out of here. Oh, there we go. It's the radius that was causing the problem. Okay, so radius is this, math.random. It's kind of the same radius, so let's move this inside animate function. And we're going to define a radius here. And radius is math.random. Oh, okay. Instead of calling this on every animate, why don't we create a function that actually handles what we're going to create within the draw circle itself? So let's create a handle circle. Handle event, actually we already had handle event listener, so let's add it here. And then radius is going to be, where is that, math.random times 20. So we'll clear that up. And then dx and dy we're also going to set up in this function to move that out of here. And dx is equal to 1, dy is equal to 1. So this is our handle event listener, and then handle event listener should then set up the variables, and when animate is called, animate will draw a circle. So that should take care. There we go. Cool. So we set up, basically to revise what we did was we set up a click, a handler, handle event listener. We set up all of our variables in this handle event listener. And then we're creating an animate function. We're going to move the draw circle within the animate function so that on every tick, we're creating a circle. And then the X and Y comes from the handle event listener, which is giving us the X and Y coordinates of where we have clicked. So let's see what we have so far. We've got circles coming on the page. They're moving pretty slowly, so we can increase the speed. The way to increase the speed is math.random. We can give it like a random speed between 1 to 20. And then similarly for dy, we can give it a speed between 1 to 20. Sweet. Okay, we've got circles going everywhere now. They kind of go out of bounds though, if you notice. So how can we fix that? The reason they're going out of bounds is because when we increase dx, we're actually letting it, or like when we increase the center of the circle, we're actually letting it go beyond infinity, like beyond the bounds of the window. So to fix that, what we can do is after we've incremented this, we can check if x is greater than bound of the window, which is window.inner width. And similarly on the opposite side, if x is less than 0, then we want to switch the direction. So what we can do is we can move it on the other side. So that's going to be minus dx, switch the direction. And so if we do this, did it go outside? Let's see. X is greater than window.inner width, or x is less than window.inner width. Dx is equal to minus dx. That should take care of it. Let's write that for window.inner height as well as x, y less than 0, dy is equal to minus dy. Okay, let's see if this is working. It's still going out of bounds, so let's see what's going on. Oh, we're drawing a circle and then we're moving it. So let's move all of this after our check. Okay, it's still going out of bounds, so let's see what's going on. If x is greater than window dot inner width and x is less than 0, dx is equal to minus dx. The value of dx comes from handle event listener. So why don't we console log what's in x and dx. Where is our console? Oh, not defined. It's nan. Okay. Why is that happening? I think the problem is probably here. So let's fix what we are seeing here. Let's log x and y. Oh, x and y is undefined. Why don't we set a x and y of give it an initial value, and same with y. Inner height. X has already been declared. Remove this. And similarly for radius, let's set it randomly. And radius as well. And then for dx, we're going to initialize it to 1, and dy, we're going to initialize it to 1 as well, so that we have no undefined values. Okay, there we go. It looked like it bounced in one side, but not the other. So let's see why that's happening. I'm going to close this. Dx, and else if y is greater than window dot inner height, y is less than 0. Let's see. Okay. I think it's still going out of bounds on x. Y, I think is fine. Okay, let's see why that's happening. X is greater than window dot inner width, or x is less than 0. Let's move this here. And we're going to move this up here. Still going out of bounds. Let's try that. Okay, let's see. I think something is window.inner width may not be setting it correctly. So let's log what is the value of our x and window.inner width. Open console. X is greater than x is less than this, then oh, I think dx might be getting reset. And maybe animate. Let's see. Okay, that is super weird. Let's see if this is a problem. Page X. It shouldn't be. Okay, let's check our X and Y in the bounds. And if it doesn't work, then it's fine. Y is greater than window dot inner height. Y is less than 0. So Y is fine. X is x plus dx and y is y plus dy. Dx is reversed, so that will be minus dx. So let's put a log condition here to check x is greater than window width and reversing. And then we'll also log what is the value of x and window dot inner width. And put it here so that we can also log dx. Let's check that. Console clear. Oh, I think it crashed. Oh, this condition is not meeting. So if x is greater than window dot inner width, it's actually not even getting into this if condition. So let's log the value of x, window dot inner width, and then dx. X and window dot inner width. Yeah, somehow it's not getting into this condition. So we'll come and debug this later. But for now, we have a rolling ball. You'll notice that sometimes when we resize, it doesn't actually take the whole width and height of the canvas. And that's because we have set it to window width and inner height. But when we resize, the height and width changes, and we are not updating that. So to fix that, we can actually add an event listener of resize and do reset the width and height there. So we can do that if you're interested. All right, so we're going to refactor this functions to now create a firework effect. And the effect that we're going to create is going to look something like this. So we're going to create this firework effect. On mouse hover, we're going to have like circles all over the screen or like this firework all over the screen. So for that, we're going to refactor this function, and I'm going to introduce a concept called particles. But particles is really just like multiple circles on this screen because we need like multiple circles going about everywhere where we click. We're going to create this an array of particles so that every time we click, we're going to create multiple particles and they are going to have different speed and different directions and they're going to move about everywhere. So really quickly, let's refactor this function, refactor this code that we have created so far to create that. Okay, first of all, we're going to create a class called particle. In this class, we're going to create the constructor, which accepts x and y. And this is where we're going to set up our particle, provided the speed, the x, y, radius, and the x and dy. Then we're going to have a draw function, which is where whatever we did in draw circle is what we're going to do. And then we're also going to have, because we need to update the speed, we're going to have an update function. I'm going to create the constructor x and y. And what this constructor do is it's going to set the x to be the x that's provided, the center y to be the y that's provided to us. The size or the radius, we're going to move this radius out of here into here. And then for the dx and dy, we currently have it set to 1 and 1 here. So let's move it out and put it in here as well. And this is going to be this dot radius, this dot dx, dot dy. Great. Now in the draw function, we were already doing something here. So we're just going to move this out and move it into our draw function. And clean this up. We don't need the stroke style. So let's remove that. Instead of x and y, we actually need this to be the x that's, instead of a and b, we need this to be the center of the circle. So that's this dot x, this dot y, this dot radius. Okay. And in update, we want to update the speed. So for that, what we'll do is we have a dx and dy. So what we want to do is this dot x is equal to update it by this dot dx. And similarly for the center, we're going to update this by dy. Great. So we've got a class setup. We've got a constructor x and y that sets the center with the x and y provided. Radius, we're setting it randomly between 0 to 20. And then same with dx, dy. For draw, we're going to do the same thing that we were doing for a circle. We're going to begin the path, create an arc. Fill style is red. We can also move this fill style right here. This dot color equals red, and fill style becomes this dot color. So far what we've done is just create a particle class, and we've moved some of the things that we were doing inside the particle class. Now, what we want to do is that every time we click or every time we move, we want to create circles. So instead of click, that's going to be a mouse move event. And then in mouse move, what we want to do is every time we move our mouse, we want to create multiple circles. So for that, I'm going to create a function called create particles. Call this function as well, and then create the function. And on every move, I'm going to create particles. And so in this function, I have access to x and y, which is where I clicked. So then I can create my handle create particles. And this is going to be called handle create particles. Okay, so I got event x, event y. I'm going to create a function that creates particles. Now let's actually create this function. So this function will basically create a predefined number of particles. So why don't we create like 20 particles? I'm going to paste this code here. Wait. So what we're doing is every time we move our event, our mouse, we're going to create 20 particles at x and y that was passed to us, or wherever we clicked. Okay. Nothing is going to happen right now. Now what we want to do is when we have created the particle, on every animation, we want to actually, instead of kind of do something similar what we were doing, we want to update the circles x and y so that it looks like they're moving. So let's do that. Now I am going to move, we already are taking care of x here, so we don't need this. We are already creating circles, so we don't need this. And then we can remove this for now. Okay, so we're clearing a circle, we're clearing the context. Let's remove this to see what happens. Actually, let's keep it. Okay. Here, let's create. Okay, so what do we want to do in Animate? We want to create In Animate, we want to actually update the speed of the functions, of the circles. So what we'll do is we'll call a function called handle particles. And in handle particles, for every particle that we've created, which is, oh, I forgot to put this here. Particles array is an empty array. Okay, so for this particles array, for this fireworks animation, we're going to create this class particles where we have this constructor, update, and draw. Now, what I've done is I've set up a particles array so that we can start adding our particles once we create them to this particles array. And that'll just help us kind of update the particles and add colors to them and add speed to them as we're going through, kind of help us manipulate the particles. So what we want to do is when we move our mouse, we want to create particles. I've added the function here, create particles. And in this function, what we want to do is we want to create a new particle with the X and Y of the event of the point that we clicked, which is going to be the X and Y that gets passed to us from the event listener, event X and event Y. Now we want to create multiple particles at that point. You can create as many as you want. Let's start with like 20. So what we want to do is we want to create a new particle at that X and Y and then push that particle to particles array. So that'll create a bunch of particles. Another thing we want to do is that once we've created particles, we want them to move around on the screen as well. And for that, we can add a function to animate called handle particles. And what that handle particles really does is for every particle in the particle array, we'll call its update function, which will increase its speed, which basically moves its center, and then call its draw function. So let's look at that. So draw basically draws on the circle on the canvas, which you have done before, and then update just moves its speed, moves its center and updates its speed. One thing that I've also added here is like I've added a variable called hue, and for color we were previously setting it to red, but instead if we add this hue here with this HSL, it'll actually give it different colors as well. So hue is just a different way of setting colors. Instead of setting with strings, we can set with hue. And if we refresh this to make sure it's working, refresh my canvas. Something is undefined here. Let's see. What is this error? Properties of get context. Reload this. Any error on the page? Get context 2D. I just refresh this canvas. Any other error on the page? CTX is not defined. Context.false now. Copy paste errors. Okay. Anything else? Context. There we go. So we've got like this firework animation everywhere. This is a lot of particles on the screen. So if you want to kind of like reduce the number of circles and the number of particles we're seeing, we can reduce that here. Let's reduce it down to like 5. And there we go. So that was creating circles with context and canvas. Like you've seen, canvas is a pretty powerful element for creating web graphics. You don't need any third party library to create graphics or animations if you're using just HTML canvas. So it's a lot of fun to play around with. And I've really been enjoying creating animations with context and canvas. There's a lot you can do with just basic stuff that's supplied here. Like you can change the hue, you can change the speed, you can change the x and y to make them move like in one direction, and there's a lot to do as well. So I encourage you to play out with canvas and see how you like it. If you like content like this, I've got more content coming on HTML canvas on my YouTube channel, which is right here. So if you like that, you might enjoy videos that will be coming up on the channel. But thank you so much for watching, and thanks for joining JS Drops.